everybody to tonight's educational forum. My name is Kathy Jones. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Alabama. We have different series where we are focusing on topics that we think voters should be really paying attention to. Tonight, we're going to learn about civic engagement and advocacy. We've got a fantastic panelist. I'm going to hand this off to Rebecca, who is the co-chair of the League of Women Voters of Alabama advocacy team, and she will introduce the panelists. If everyone will put your questions in the chat, we won't be answering them during the forum, but at the end, when they've finished the discussion, then we'll switch to questions and answers. So thank you all, and I'm going to hand it off to Rebecca. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. I'm very excited for all y'all tonight. We've got a fabulous group of panelists. We have Patricia Todd. She is currently the Southern Policy Manager and Lobbyist for Jobs to Move America. She's also a Birmingham League member. Robin Buckaloo is a retired professional engineer and advocacy director for the League of Alabama. And then finally, we have Taylor. She is the I Vote Madison. She's on the League of Women Alabama Voters. The League of Women Voters of Alabama's Education Fund and director of the Alabama Channel. So we're going to start with Patricia Todd, and she will start by giving us an introduction to the Alabama legislature. Patricia.
Thank you for that, and I'm so excited about this, and so excited to see the amount of people that are here to learn more about it. Having served in the legislature for years, I'm hopefully will give a different perspective about how the legislature functions. So let me see if I can get this going. Let's see. I have to move that slideshow. There, come on. Okay. You know, most people really don't know much about the legislature. That's where I'm going to focus. I served 12 years in the legislature. I've been an activist for many, many years. I've founded Kentucky Now and worked for 3 years in their national office, served as a board member for Equality Alabama. I've been executive director for the Human Rights Campaign, executive director for Birmingham AIDS Outreach and AIDS Alabama. So what we're going to talk about is how the legislature functions or dysfunctions, who influences voting, how to contact your legislators, and the most effective methods of contact. So I'd be interested by a show of hands of people on this call. How many have ever contacted your state legislature? Just raise your hand. Okay. Great. All right. People get involved in politics and legislative action for different reasons. Some are due to taxation issues, like many people here are probably concerned about removing the tax on groceries. It may affect your rights, like who you can marry. It may be about public safety, gun laws, education, what your child learns in school. We know we're having debate in the legislature. We'll continue to on critical race theory. Maybe regarding employment, and whether or not you've been convicted of a felony and how that might impact your ability to get employment. And then healthcare. Obviously, Roe v. Wade being overturned last year, a lot of people have been engaged in politics due to that. So I'd like to know if you would post it in the chat. What are you the most passionate about? So let's talk a little bit about the Alabama legislature. We just went through an election. All the legislators were up for re-election. There are 140 members in the legislature. There are 35 in the Senate and 105 in the House. And the party affiliation has not changed with that election. We have 104 Republicans and 36 Democrats, which you can see may be problematic. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. When you don't have, when you have a party that dominates any legislative body, can be problematic, and that the Democrats don't going to have to show up for the Republicans to, take action. The breakdown, there are 37 Black legislators. One of those is Republican from Shelby County. I'm sorry, my dog's barking in the background. And then there are 103 white members. We have this is an important statistic that's scary to me. There's one white member in the House and one white Democratic member in the Senate. So it is not a diverse legislature at all. There's only 22 women in the legislature. We're ranked 47th in the country for female representation. So let's look at who holds the power. One thing that you need to know when you're dealing with the legislature is who holds the power, who has the power to move legislation or get people to vote on legislation. So the most leaders in the chambers are the Speaker of the House and the Lieutenant Governor in the Senate. Those two people actually run the day's activities, call on people, and so they are very powerful players. They also appoint committee chairs and members to committees, and they assign bills to committees. It's important because sometimes bills don't go to the committee that you would naturally think they would. Sometimes the Speaker, Lieutenant Governor will assign it to a committee to kill a bill. So you have to be aware of that. The Rules Committee is a committee most people don't really think about, but they have a powerful position in the legislature. Every bill that comes out of committee moves to the Rules Committee. And the Rules Committee members decide what bills will make it onto the agenda for the next legislative day. Each member on the Rules Committee gets to pick one or two bills, depending on how many bills they want to deal with on the next day. So, say, for example, one of my bills, I had to go and talk to a member of the Rules Committee to ask them to pick my bill. It's not an automatic thing that happens. It has to be selected by a member. Then you have majority and minority leaders. These are the two members of each party that sort of holds their members accountable on the floor, manages who speaks and encourages people to say this, that, or the other. So they do have a great deal of power. Lobbyists have a great deal of power. Alabama has a lot of lobbyists. There are probably 6 or 7 lobbyists for every member of the legislature. Lobbyists are paid by organizations to influence voting. A lot of times they're the ones who are actually drafting legislation and driving legislation because they're the experts on a particular issue. Then there are the clerks. These are committee clerks that assist the chair of the committee. They have all access to the legislature and to the committee chair and members. They're the gatekeepers. So it's really important to know who the clerk is for the committee that your bill is moving through. And really, two people that you don't really think about are the receptionists, both at the House and the Senate. They are the people that can tell you where offices are. They can ask for members to come out of the chamber and talk to you. And it's always good to have a good relationship with them, because if they really don't like you, they're not going to be very helpful to you. So never underestimate the power of the receptionists. Okay, so the leadership. Doesn't that picture look familiar? White men dominate leadership positions in half decades in Alabama. I know that's not shocking to anybody. The lieutenant governor presides over the Senate. His name is Will Ainsworth. He just won re-election. He's a Republican. And Senate Pro Tem, he runs the floor action. That's Greg Reeves from Jasper. He's a Republican. The Speaker of the House presides over the House. That's Nathaniel Ledbetter. He's new. He'll be the new Speaker. And then the Speaker pro tem is Chris Engel. He's from Republican. New. I mean, he's not new to the legislature, but that's a new position for him. The Majority Leader is really manages the floor in the House. Scott Standridge. He's a Republican. He's new in that position. The Minority Leader, which controls the majority party floor, that's Anthony Daniels. He's from Huntsville, and he has served in this position him. Having a hard time advancing these. Okay. I find this picture sort of funny because I think a lot of people suggested that I ought to wear patches of their major donors so you know who they're really speaking for, which I actually think would be a great idea. But there are 31 new members in the House. We had one Democrat flipped a black male by a white male, and we had one Republican flip a white woman by a white male. So we lost one black House member in the past election. There are 6 new members in the Senate, and there's no change in the number of D's and R. Why is this important? Well, it's important because new members are clueless in their first session. Many of them don't even know where the bathroom is. They don't know how things really work behind the scenes. Usually, it's easier to get something to make friends with a new member because they are so new and they're trying to sort of figure out the lay of the land. Such. So if you have a new member that represents the first thing you need to do is find out who represents the legislature, and you can do that through the League of Women Voters website. So if you're following a bill, here's some things you need to know. You need to know what committee it's assigned to, who are the members of that committee. Now they're going through an organizational session this week where all the committees will be selected and all members they'll know what their committee assignments are. So hopefully by next week on the website, you'll be able to track that. You need to know if your legislator serves on that committee. You need to know the bill number, the sponsor and the co-sponsor. Now, a lot of times legislators, this was true of me, I couldn't tell you numbers where if somebody calls me and says, I want you to support House Bill 20. Many times I didn't know what House Bill 20 was. You have to subject is. Because there's hundreds of pieces of legislation that get introduced. You need to find out if your legislator is a sponsor or co-sponsor of the bill. I'm going to show you the legislative website in a minute so you can find that out. You need to find out if the leadership is in favor or oppose the bill. That will have a huge impact on whether the bill moves or not. Party support or oppose the bill. Need to know when it's in committee. Every bill gets assigned to a committee by the you can always call for a public hearing on a bill, even if you support or oppose a bill. Sort of committee members and the public about what it's about. But in the first part of the session, that will do the actual vote on the bill week. And also, if you've got a bill in committee that you want to make sure gets out, you need to get a member of the committee lined up to call the question, can actually go to a vote. The chair can move a bill to subcommittee, sometimes that in a way to kill the bill. So it just sort of disappears. Make sure you count the votes on the committee, and also know the fiscal impact of a bill that you're supporting or opposing, because that will have a big influence on whether people want to move it or not. So you need to wear appropriate attire when you're in the State House. You have to wear a dress suit or anything like that. You can wear jeans, but make sure you have an appropriate top on. House is going into session or coming out of session. You have to stay behind a roped area while they're moving back and forth. That's so they can have clear access to their offices. You need to find out where your legislator's office is. You can find that out from the receptionist. They do move them around, so don't assume you know. You need to call them, either representative or senator. And you can do this while in session. You can ask receptionists to call you them out of session to talk with you. Most of the times they will do that. But you have to ask for your representative or senator. You can't, they're not likely to want to talk to you if you don't live in their district. So don't do. While you're in a committee hearing, don't raise your hand or talk during committee meetings. This is, the chair's not going to recognize you if you're in the audience. They frankly don't care. Don't yell at a legislator. I've had that happen to me. That'll get you in trouble with security pretty quickly. Don't block the hallways as they're coming in and out of a session. Don't argue or raise voice to a legislator, and you cannot bring any weapons into the State House. So who influences policy? You'd like to think it's average citizens, but the reality is it's mostly lobbyists because they're the ones who are distributing PAC money to candidates. And the political parties, they're going to try to enforce their platforms and hold their members accountable to what their platforms say. The leadership of both chambers, because they're the ones who assign bills and they appoint committee chairs. And then businesses, because they're also the ones who are distributing money during campaigns. Now in Alabama, they're not able to raise any money for their campaigns from now until they run for election, and that's significant. Special interest groups, the League of Women Voters is considered a special interest group, and their influence comes from the amount of people, not necessarily the money that you distribute, but the amount of people you can show up or get to take action. And then donors, the people who have given money to candidates, obviously have an influence. So what do you say when you're talking to a legislator? You need to introduce yourself, tell them where you live, make sure that you tell them that you're in your district. You don't have to tell them whether you voted for them or not. You need to state your position on the bill, number, and content, whether you're for or against it. Then ask them where they stand on the issue. If they support it, thank them. If they oppose it, give them some facts why you support the bill. And then send a follow-up email thanking them for their time. This does not have to be a lengthy conversation. They don't have the tolerance for that. Just, I'm for House Bill 1. Here's why. You think about it. They support, thank them. If they're opposed to it, give them a couple of more facts. You probably know more about the bill than they do. So, how do you crowd of people who are talking? Your influence is your voice and your vote. They for you. Really try to recruit others to join you contacting the legislator. So you got a couple of friends or members, neighbors who agree with you on a piece of legislation. Ask them to contact their legislator. Keep contacting them with new information. Don't let them ignore you. I'm going to tell you they will ignore you. And thank them again if they agree with you. It's important to visit them while they're in the State House. That's when you've got an audience. They don't make appointments, so don't think you're going to call up and say, can I come by your office at 1 and talk? They're going to avoid that. So, but you can go to the State House when they're in session, try to find them in their office, or call them out on the floor. Don't overwhelm them with a lot of documents. You wouldn't believe the amount of information a legislator receives, and they don't read it. So if you're going to give them something, make it 5 bullet points with your contact information. It's important to join organizations that are on your side, like the League of Women Voters. And then, find out who they listen to or who sits next to them on the floor, because that's who they're going to be talking to. So how do you change your mind? Well, you need to read the bill. They don't read all the bills. They're dependent on lobbyists to tell them what's the content of the bill. There's only one person I know in the House that read every single bill, and that's Laura Hall. She's every single bill. She has a copy of every single bill on her desk. And she is very well respected because she does that. You need to tell them why you support or oppose a bill. Make it personal. You need to get the facts, determine why they have the position they do. Don't be hostile, and ask if there's anything you can do to their mind. So communicating with the legislator. Some forms are more effective than others. And the easiest is obviously to send a form, email, or sign a petition. But I'm telling you, those are the most ineffective ways to convince, because for me, it's like, if you didn't care any more about a piece of legislation than to sign a form or just click forward on an email, did you really care? I'd rather get a 1-paragraph personal email from somebody than a petition, because most of the times you can't verify that people who sign actually live in your district. Communicate personalized information on your own email is very effective. A phone call to the state house or district, they all have phones in their office. Most of them are not in their office, or they're not going to answer the phone. You can call and leave a message with the receptionist to give them the message. Now, that's real easy for them to just wad it up and throw it in the trash. The best thing to do and the most effective thing to do is have a personal meeting, either in the state house. Some of them have town hall meetings, or call them while they're in district and say, do you have time have coffee? These are not like members of Congress who have district offices. Most of them do not. And I love this thing from ACLU. It's like, email them, meet with them, call them, repeat. You just got to keep repeating and getting more people to do the same thing. So why people don't contact their legislator? A lot of times people feel like, well, they're a Republican, I'm a Democrat. It's not going to make a difference. They're not going to listen to me. A lot of people feel intimidated talking to an elected official. But let me say this, they're just like you. They're your neighbors and they work for you. Sometimes it's not easy to find their contact information. Like right now on the legislative website, they don't have any of their emails listed. I don't understand that. Sometimes they don't care because you didn't vote for them. Really don't care what you think. I've heard a lot of people say, I don't know who my legislator is. Well, now you're going to know, because the League of Women Voters can get you in touch with them. Or people will say, I just don't have the time. It takes 5 minutes to make that contact. Hopefully you care more about that issue and don't let that stop you. So what to expect? Don't expect a reply, because they're not going to reply to you. They just don't. They're rarely in their offices. You can leave a message on their door of the office. They don't draft their own bills. They are very easily distracted. So if you find one in the hallway and you're like, I'm so-and-so, I live in district, can I talk to you about so-and-so? They're going to get distracted by a lobbyist or somebody else coming by. So just realize that. They're not going to read the materials you leave. Most of them don't have a local office, and only some of these do, like Madison, Mobile. Jefferson County doesn't even have a local office. they're on their phones all the time, or they have others in their office. You just have to be persistent. Now, when you're communicating with the legislature, rule of thumb is it's going to be their first name dot last name at either al.gov or alsenate.gov. But don't assume that they're going to read all their emails, because they don't. You need to check out their Facebook page, check out their legislative page. You can leave a message at the receptionist desk, leave a note on their office door, ask them to contact you. Again, be persistent. Why they don't seem to care? It's not a priority issue for them. It's not on their immediate radar. They're too busy focusing on other legislation. They know you didn't vote for them. They don't care what you think. And it's not an issue that affects their district. So, how to find your legislator? You can go to the League of Women Voters website. You can also go to the Secretary of State's site. You enter your address. It's going to tell you who your elected officials are. And I can't tell you how many times I do these kind of seminars or talk to groups and ask them how many people know who your elected officials are. And they might name a member of Congress or a U.S. senator, but they have no idea who their local legislator is. So the legislative website, you need to get familiar with that. If you click on it, which I'm going to go to right now, it will come up to this where it's got the House, the Senate. It'll have a live stream link here, so they're in session when you can live stream. But now that the League of Women Voters has this Alabama channel, you don't have to watch it live. If you've got a bill search, I actually set this up for me every legislative session where I go in and I list certain bills that I want to track. So that's where you might do that. It will also tell you about session info, what time they're coming in, what's going to be on the calendar that day. So it's very helpful. You really need to get familiar with that website. I go back to my presentation, which sometimes I love Zoom and sometimes I'm like, the thing that's really, don't expect that, honestly, they can be really rude, unresponsive. I'm amazed, even as a full legislator, and I know a lot of the people that serve now, and how many do not respond to email that I send. That's the lay of the land. So if you're very committed to a bill, like I know as a league member and of the Alabama Sunlight Coalition, we're working on some changes to the Open Records Act to make sure that that's an easier process. And we're going to be tracking some bills in this coming session. We'll actually be introducing a couple of bills. It's you'll be amazed at what they will oppose or support during the session. They haven't posted any pre-filed bills yet, which usually they do before the session starts. The session starts, I think, the first Tuesday in March. So you've got a little time to get used to it. But this webpage is very informational, and you need to know. It'll tell you what's every day. It'll give you a tracking of every bill, where it is. You can look at who sits on committee. So it's important to become familiar with that. And that's sort of a simple overview. The main thing I want to emphasize is please don't be intimidated by contacting a legislator. They need to hear from us. Alabama's got a long way to go, and we have a lot of issues to work on, and we have to be ones that are, holding them accountable. So thank you to the women voters for giving me the opportunity to walk through this. My email address is reptop@gmail.com. Have any questions or anything, please feel free to contact me. I plan to be in the State House a lot and hope to see you there. Thank you all so much.
Patricia, thank you so much. It's really valuable to have your insight, considering that's who we're trying to influence. So you know how they think. You used to be one. Now we're going to go to Robin. She is going to share with us an overview on the League of Women and their advocacy work. Robin?
Thank you much. It's good to be here tonight, and I'm delighted to see the number of participants that in spite of the championship game. So I'm going to discuss advocacy a little bit. Webster's defines it as the action of advocating, pleading for, or support. An advocate is one that pleads the cause of another, or one that argues for, defends, maintains, or wrecks a cause or proposal. In the context of the League of Women Voters of Alabama, the latter definition is our operational one. The way we're organized, voter services supports individuals in attaining or restoring their voting rights, and advocacy proposes policy and legislative changes which opportunities for civic engagement, including their ability to obviously the fine line between voter service and advocacy, and many members work in both areas. Many of the issues that voter services identify as problems for numbers of individuals result in proposals for actions by the advocacy group. Kathy Jones conceived the current concept for advocacy operations several years ago when she was state secretary, and it's been a really interesting ride. Our first big effort was working on People Maps, PPFM, under a grant from the National League, which extended over 3 years, leading up to the redistricting effort, which took place after the 2020 census. We in Alabama analyzed gerrymandering in urban areas, we learned map making, and we ultimately sponsored the development of an example to show that it's very feasible to place Alabamians in districts that do not break up these of interest. League of Women Voters members spoke at redistricting hearings all over the state, often speaking from personal experience of living in a gerrymandered neighborhood. We were joined in the hearings from other organizations who spoke to the same issues. It's true that the state legislature ignored citizens' inputs, many of their own legislative members, and passed blatantly unfair maps. But subsequent litigation is still before the Supreme Court. It's in this for the long game. So what examples of advocacy that we have been participating in over the past several years, because everyone doesn't necessarily like the same cup of tea, but there's a lot that can be done in a lot of different areas of activity. So advocacy is meetings both in person and by Zoom with various state legislators and officials. One very successful meeting we had was Cam Ward, the director of the Bureau of Pardons and Paroles, resulted in a policy change that made it a little bit easier for formerly incarcerated people to have their voting rights restored. So if you're that person that's getting your voting rights restored, that's a big win for you. Last election, the advocacy team analyzed proposed state constitutional amendments as they were related to voting rights restoration and other positions of the National League. We submitted recommendations to the state board, ones to support, to oppose, or to stay neutral on. The League of Women Voters of Alabama published the resulting positions. So, for a fact, members of the public followed our recommendations during the election. This coming legislative session, we plan to analyze proposed legislation to determine which pieces of legislation issues on which the League has a position, so that we can determine whether we oppose bills. Big issue for the League, government transparency, which Patricia Todd alluded briefly in her talk. We've been pushing open records law reform for several years and supporting open media legislation. Transparency is foundational to all that the League has accomplished. If we don't know what's going on in Montgomery or in our local city councils, it's very hard to promote change. Right now, a state agency doesn't even have to respond to a Freedom of Information Act request. The League of Women Voters of Alabama and several local leagues have produced a number of educational fora over the last year. The aim is to inform as many voters in Alabama as possible of issues concerned to them. For example, Advocacy hosted a forum on reproductive in the fall, following the overturn of Roe versus Wade. The format was strictly educational. Rather than take a position on Alabama's laws respecting, we tried to prevent the legal implications of those laws. We want the public to understand potential issues for themselves and their family. For these fora and for many of our other league efforts, coalition building is essential. We have participated in building Alabama Voting Rights Coalition. All the members of the various groups have come together in agreement on what constitutes a worthwhile bill to improve the ability of the formerly incarcerated to restore their voting rights. Last legislative session, very close to getting a bill passed. We also participate in coalitions in which other groups do the heavy lifting, and we take a supporting role. A good example of this support for Alabama Appleseed's efforts to get legislation passed to prevent citizens from losing driver's licenses for non-driving offenses. The League of Women Voters of Alabama has a blog, edited and mostly written by Tuscaloosa member Catherine Davies. This is another weapon in our arsenal to help us get our issues in public. An example of one of her blogs was written on teaching implications for an individual and family of losing one's driver's license. One of our most exciting current endeavors is called the Alabama Channel. The League of Women Voters of Alabama received a Making Democracy grant from the National League. The Alabama Channel is a transparency tool to make greater civic engagement in the state possible. Tara Bailey heads it, and she will be discussing it next. Of course, the advocacy team make everything happen by itself. We hope to enter league advocates from all over the state. There are all kinds of opportunities to participate. We need league to attend our fora, like you all are tonight. We need them to encourage other people to do so. Members to help educate the citizens of our state. In particular, we need response to our calls to action. We know from talking to state legislators that if they hear from even 10 constituents on a particular bill, that is a lot of interest from constituency. A call to action might be to mail postcards to the legislators representing your district, a personal postcard from yourself. It might be to place a call or an email. It might be to gather at a government building with signs to call attention to a good or a bad piece of legislation. When the league sends out a call to action, we need every relevant member and members to take action. That is how we will make progress in this state.
Thank you so much, Robin. I'm seeing some really great questions in the chat, and we'll circle back to those. So feel free to continue to drop those into the chat. But next, we're going to hear from Tara Bailey, and she's going to discuss the Alabama Channel and how folks can use it for and just being a more engaged and informed voter and citizen.
Unmute myself. All right. Here we go. All right, I'm so excited to be here this evening and see so many people on the call tonight. I know many will probably watch the replay because of the game, but for the next few minutes, I'll be walking you through what the ALABAMA is and how to use it as a civic engagement tool. So the Alabama Channel is a website that provides simple, searchable, live and recorded footage of Alabama's legislative meetings. It is a project of the League of Women Voters of Alabama Education Fund. If you're somewhat new to civic engagement or need a refresher, I would recommend starting with the issues you care about most. You may choose to limit your area's interest to 1 to 3 topics in order to avoid getting overwhelmed. For this presentation, I will be talking about how to engage at the state level, but want to encourage you to get engaged at the local government level as well. To research your topics, you can use Allison, Alabama's legislative website, which stands for the Alabama Legislative Information Service Online. You can use the Alabama Channel to see and follow legislative meetings and what's being said about the issues you care about. You can connect with organizations who are working on the topic, like the League of Women Voters. You can look through past news articles, or you can see what legislation other states may have passed related to the topics you're interested in. Really, anything that involves research. So for Allison, I recommend checking out the Quick Clicks user guide to understand where key information is housed on the website, such as bill meeting schedules and information about legislators. You can use Allison to see past bills and current bills. Graphic 22. Since the Alabama Channel first began recording Alabama's legislative meetings starting in late February of 2022, the only bills and videos are those that were live streamed, discussed in committee or in the House or Senate after that time. Of course, we will be live streaming and recording all the videos going forward as well. So you can use the search bar, type in the topic written. For this demonstration, I chose voting. You will see that the bills dealing with voting from the 2022 session are displayed here. You want to pay close attention to the current status and last action of the bill. If it says read for the first time and referred to committee, this means the bill didn't get discussed in the committee and there will be no video footage of the bill on the Alabama Channel. Even if there is no footage, you can still read the bill and see who sponsored or co-sponsored it. You can also see what committee the bill was sent to and use the Alabama Channel to view meetings of that. The decision on whether a committee hears a bill falls on the chair of the committee. If it says read second time, there may be footage of the bill on the Alabama Channel. You'll see that I found a bill that says it was read for a second time in the second house. That bill number is HB or House Bill 63. Now I'm going to switch over to the Alabama Channel.
Tara, you might want to reduce the Zoom panel. It's over right on top of what you're showing.
I apologize.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Oh,
thank you.
Thanks. So this is the Alabama Channel, and you get there by going to thealabamachannel.org. This is essentially, like I said, the simple, searchable, live and recorded video footage of Alabama's legislative meetings. More than that, this is a voter education resource. At the bottom of here, the page, you can find your legislator, links to contact your legislator, follow a bill, or access voter services. We encourage you to look through the entire website. But for the purposes of this meeting, I want to draw your attention to the Watch Meetings button. So if you go here, you will see there are currently no live meetings happening. And this means is that Allison, the website, is not currently live streaming anything. So the Alabama Channel is not currently live streaming anything. When the meetings are being live streamed, we not only live stream to our website, but we also live stream to our YouTube page, Facebook page, and Twitter page. So that will house, in the live sessions, it'll say either House, Senate, House Committee, Senate committees, or joint committees. And then when you click on it, you'll see what's live. So the Alabama channel, all the videos that are housed can be searchable by transcript. And that's what makes this tool pretty powerful. So if you remember, we looked at House Bill 63. We're looking at voting. And if I hit search after typing House Bill 63, see every single time House Bill 63 was mentioned, any one of our videos that we've captured so far. So the first video here is the Alabama House of Representatives and the date March 17th. And if you go down, captions that display a little bit about what was talked about regarding House Bill 63. And that, it appeared a few different meetings. So if you go to the hyperlink on the first video, just to see what was said, it will take you directly.
House Bill 63. House Bill 63 only deals with voter.
It will take you directly to that moment where whatever you mentioned, it could be a bill, it could be a topic that you're interested in, it will take you to that moment. If you find an interesting moment you'd like to share with your friends and family, if it's something you care about and you want to share with them, all you have to do is hit the share button, and that will allow you to share that to Twitter. You can embed it on a website if you have a website. You can also copy this hyperlink and put it in an email and send it to someone. Also pointing out, if there was a more broader conversation around House Bill 63 and say you just found that hyperlink and went to that exact moment, you can actually go back a little bit in order to grab that entire conversation. And once you get there, you can say it was 3:55:09, and you can go ahead and change the start time to whatever that is, so that when you send it, people get right to that moment you want them to see quickly. There is a disclaimer on our site that makes sure everybody is aware that this is a product of the League of Women Voters of Alabama Education Fund, and it is not affiliated with Alabama state government. We also want to point out that videos are transcribed using YouTube's automatic transcription tool, so they may not be 100% accurate, but it's actually done pretty well. From there, you can search anything, and I encourage all of you to take some time, find some moments of interest, and go ahead and share them on social media and play with it and let people know what you care about. It's really just a great tool to do that. The Alabama channel not only is educating Alabamians, but it's helping to educate our legislators as well. All of Alabama's legislative meetings are only live streamed and not recorded. That means when a bill goes to before that bill got in the House, those House members are unable to see what happened to that bill during the committee meeting. And so now this gives everybody a chance to see what exactly was said, so that they're as prepared as they when they go to legislation. We all know that legislators get bombarded with all kinds of bills. So with that, I will go ahead and pause and then wait on your questions. Thank you.
Kara, I'm so excited. Thank you for sharing, but also I am personally very excited about the Alabama channel. And every time you do a demonstration, I learn something new, and it's pretty cool. So I'm going to start with a couple of quick questions and then go into some broader questions that we have to drop any questions that you have for any of our panelists into the box. Robin, I'm going to start. We had a question in the chat that said, what were the changes in parole made?
Okay, it was a policy change in which they decided that they would not count fines and fees that were not repaid that were for non-disqualifying offenses. So up until that point, they were basically holding formally incarcerated people who had completed for their disqualifying conviction responsible for paying all their fines and fees back, instead of the ones that related to the disqualifying conviction. And this basically disenfranchised a lot of people because it included all kinds of things that were not disqualifying. So as I said, it made it a little bit easier because it lightened the load of the money that they would have to pay back before they get their voting rights back.
Okay, Patricia, I have another quick question for you that came through the chat. Have you heard anything of a regular session?
No, I don't think they'll have a special session, a regular session.
And they do have an organizational starting this
Starts
week.
tomorrow.
Yeah, but that's setting the rules of the body, not passing legislation.
Correct.
All right, well, I'm going to ask this question to all of y'all. We take turns. I'll start with you, Tara. So what is a quick tip for someone who is new to advocacy?
I think a quick tip is just to jump in. Don't overthink organizations, get people who have been in this game and learn. And that's what
Robin, do you have a tip for just getting started?
Yeah, find something that you really, really care about and investigate that and see what the legal situation is on that, and pick that to your cause that you want to pursue.
And Patricia, have any other tips for beginners?
I just think that, you have to step into it and dominate it. And, they work for you. You're a voter, and they should respect and listen to you.
And I'll share one as well, as thinking through your presentation, Patricia, that you have to find the way to communicate with your legislators. So some legislators are super active on Twitter. So if you use Twitter, that might be a way to reach them. Some do their legislative email, some never check it. Some are phone people. Like, it's a little bit relatives, some relatives will text and some will call. You have to figure out what works first.
True.
This is that came from Kathy, and I'll give this to you, Patricia. How many people do you think it would take, I guess, in Montgomery at a meeting to really catch legislators' eyes on an issue?
Well, a lot of organizations have advocacy. Dozens of people show up. But I actually think 2 or 3 people that support a bill, make a trip to Montgomery, sit in their office, call them out. I mean, that can as well. You would be amazed how little it takes to get their attention. If I got emails that were unique from 4 or 5 different people position on a bill, I was like, okay, this is important. I need to pay attention to it.
Okay. If you don't make it to Montgomery, what are some other ways that you can be influential during the legislative session?
Email them, call them, leave a message for them, call them while they're back in their district. Unfortunately, the site doesn't always list a local number for them. That's automatic. Or contact the committee that they're on. Each committee has a clerk, personal information on how to contact a member.
Robin, do you have anything to add to that?
There's a lot you can do from home. Me being a mother of 3 with a couple comorbidities, I can't just walk into buildings right now and expose myself to viruses and things. And so I've, talk to your friends, reach out to your family, your stories with your social circle, and encourage them to go ahead and reach out to their legislators, and use the Alabama channel to find those things and share them, because I feel like video is very impactful. Sometimes if you just write a paragraph, it is exciting of something that happened. So I think that move people to act.
Okay, since we talked about committee meetings and things like that, Patricia, how do you call for a public hearing on a bill? Anybody
can call for a public hearing. But the problem is they don't give you a lot of advance notice on committee. Like, you might find out like the day that this bill is going to be the next day. you just email the clerk, which all the clerks are listed on the website, and say, hey, I would like to call for a public hearing on House Bill 4. And they have to do it.
Robin, going to you. Do you have any particular things that you want to share with folks that maybe you shouldn't do while advocating? I know Patricia touched on some of those, but is there anything that comes to mind to you?
Form letters are bad news to them. One of the things that I noticed is that when I was trying to get in touch with my legislators, I don't know if it was deliberate or accidental, but their contact information was incorrect. And so my letters and my letters got returned undeliverable, and my emails answered. Obviously, that calls for some more investigation, and Tricia offered some ideas about getting in touch with the committee clerk and other things where you could get some genuine contact information. It's a source of frustration to me.
Sure. Tara, I wanted to ask you, could you give us a little background on why you started the Alabama channel, and how does Alabama differ from other states when it comes to sharing news?
So the short answer is that the Alabama channel started because I feel strongly that no matter what you care about, you should know what your elected leaders are saying about it. And the slightly longer answer is that it started with a desire to increase civic engagement in my community. My friend Heather Morgan and I started a group called I Vote Madison with the purpose of encouraging residents to participate in local government. Once we started, we quickly realized that the ability for citizens to watch council meetings after they happen was not available. This led to us advocating for meetings to be recorded and archived. We also began live streaming meetings and archiving meetings ourselves to our Facebook page and YouTube page. Our city council now records and archives their council meetings for 4 years. So when I realized the same thing was happening with Alabama's legislature, I knew that I could do something about it. So I started the Alabama channel on Facebook in February of 2022. Later in the spring, I worked with Lou and Kathy Jones to take the Alabama channel on as a League of Women Voters Fund project, where it could receive some grant funding and a wider audience. So Alabama is one of 4 states who are not currently archiving their meeting footage. And in doing research, I found states are using different methods to archive. Some, like Mississippi, and use YouTube, while others, like Tennessee, are using a company called Granicus. The Alabama channel is fortunate to work with the Open Media Foundation, who handles live streaming and recording all of Colorado's legislative meetings for the Colorado channel. So their search functionality allows users to search meetings by transcript. And doing further research, I've learned that Alabama is now very few states that will have transcript level searchability thanks to our work. It's pretty exciting.
It's an incredible resource. Incredible resource.
Thank you.
So Kathy asked, I noticed that several legislators were using the talk points that were used in the redistricting forum that were broadcast over Zoom. Do you have any suggestions on how to drive the narrative?
Are you asking me?
Sure.
You know, when legislature, I went through 2 redistricting committees, and it's a joke the way we do it in Alabama. It's done by a professional independent commission that doesn't have skin in the game, who lays out these districts, you know, professionally. It's just a joke. And of course, we have a case making its way through the judicial system on districting. But literally, let me just share this. You know, they draft the districts, and they will call a legislator in to the district. Hey, look at your map and see what you like or don't like, and you can move, you know, your lines. Robinson had a family member that lived just a district and wanted me to redraw the lines so his family member would be in his district. I mean, it's just crazy. It's crazy the way we do it, but you know, it should be done professionally by an independent commission. I don't know if that answered the question, but that's what I think should happen.
Does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Rebecca, maybe I ought to clarify what I was
Sure.
asking also. What I was thinking was, it appeared that the people on the floor of the legislature had been listening to what we were saying in those forums. I mean, I heard some of the same verbiage, and I started thinking there's got to be, it seems like if you can get their attention on something like that, is there an opportunity for us to drive their level of understanding on issues outside
So
of
not
the
necessarily reading, but any issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, a great question. I wish I had a good answer to it. I'm glad that you got their attention. It demonstrates a position of power for the league that they're what you're doing.
And if anybody else
going to
has,
say it wasn't just because I know we got people on the Zoom tonight that were not. It was not just the league, but it was a couple groups together. Just wanted to say.
thank you, Kathy. And if anybody else has any questions, I've got a couple more, but make sure you go ahead and chat because I think we're winding down. I'm going to start with you on this, Tara, but anybody else who wants to weigh in, feel free. I know a lot of the things that kind of hold people communicating are feeling like they're not an expert on the issue or they don't have all of the answers to you. So how do you overcome that? How do you advocate that maybe you don't feel fully versed in?
I feel like it comes down to telling your personal story about the legislation. What I've heard from former Representative Mike Ball recently, while he appeared at a city council meeting here in Madison advocating marijuana, that he had been against medical marijuana years, and it took a grandmother emailing him let him know medical marijuana could really help their granddaughter. And that's, he says, what changed his mind on pushing for medical marijuana. He became the sponsor of the bill and the champion of medical marijuana across this. Now, you know, we're about to have licenses called for medical marijuana, and states are passing ordinances to allow the state. So it's really gone a long way. Madison is not one of those cities who adopted the ordinance, but Huntsville and Athens, and I believe Decatur as well, have all adopted it. So pretty powerful.
An opponent to an advocate.
Yes, and that was my bill originally, and I handed it to Mike because I knew a Republican ex-law enforcement person would have more power to get it passed. It's a powerful story to get our law passed. It was a bill that got no votes, and quite an incredible story. And I know Mike's just released a book where he talks about this. And but we're going to miss Mike Ball.
Robin, do you have anything to add on?
I would just say that most people don't realize that their personal story gives them more than any member of the state legislature. So you should never feel like you don't know enough, because likely you're going to know more than anybody else because it's your story.
Mm-hmm.
We had a question come in through the chat. Wanted to know a little more about Medicaid expansion, maybe the chances in Alabama. Who is the appropriate person that would make that happen in Alabama?
Alabama Rise is the expert on Medicaid expansion. I strongly encourage you to go to their website and sign up their updates and donate to them. They've been advocating this for a long time. I don't expect this to happen. Although we have a lot more rural legislators who are seeing hospital closes closings area that they realize it's due to not expand Medicaid. We're so far, but Alabama Rise is really the expert on Medicaid expansion.
And the League of Women Voters of Alabama is a member of Alabama Rise.
And Barbara Cadell mentioned the Cover Alabama Coalition, which I think all of these folks are involved in. And so I also wanted to ask, what are some of the top issues you will be watching this session? We'll start with you, Patricia, since you had that last.
No, because it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. I think what I'm going to be watching is we're going to see some more anti-bills making their way across the country, which is just a daggum shame. One of my major tax incentives and the lack of transparency and accountability, they're going to renew a bunch of those. Takes a lot of money out of municipalities for law and public health things, but don't get me started. So we'll have to be watching those. You got a lot of young freshman legislators who want to make their mark, so they're going to try to introduce some really bad legislation. We do have one Republican freshman legislator who's very pro removing the town groceries. That hope that we can do that. So I think those are some of the things. There's what they call windfall in the Education Trust Fund budget. It'll be interesting to see what they do with that. They've been doing a tax rebate to taxpayers. Meanwhile, don't pay teachers enough, and that's another issue. So those are some things that I think that we need to keep our eye on. And the whole criminal justice system is so out of whack that we really need to be watching what they're going to do with building these mega prisons and the death penalty and those sort of things.
Tara, I will go to you next. I'm watching for the session.
I'm really interested to see how it's going to allocate the rest of their American Rescue Plan dollars. There's some talk of going into an early special session, but maybe that on the table is much right now, according to Patricia. So hopefully they'll get that in order, not spend it, I think, on prisons again.
Yep.
That's what some of the money has gone to prison. I have a strong interest in seeing some of the money and some of the Alabama Education Trust Fund surplus money be spent on improving air quality in our K through 12 schools to reduce the transmission of airborne illnesses through our schools, because I think that affects our entire community when we have children that are out sick. And there is something we can do about it by increasing ventilation and adding portable HEPA filtration. And so I have done some work in that area and continue to do that. So I'll be interested to see if we can do something in that respect.
And Robin?
We have a short list of things that we can plan in advance that we're watching. So we will be watching for additional voter suppression efforts. We want to push automatic voter registration. I mentioned the driver's license bill. We'll be following that again. I mentioned the reproductive health, following any movement in the laws on that, and what we would like a relaxing of some of the restrictions, particularly to protect young girls who have gotten caught in a bad situation. 10-year-olds should not have to have a baby. The transparency effort is one that we're going to begin. And we are part of the Alabama Voting Rights Coalition, and we are going to be trying again to get a bit of legislature that will make it easier for formerly incarcerated to get back their rights to vote.
Mm-hmm.
And I know one thing that I've heard of that I think is going to be coming back up and is concepts bill. It's kind of a CRT education bill. Although it's so vague and not specific, but it kind of is just a scary That's
It's an
scary.
intimidation tactic.
Exactly.
Rebecca,
Oh, go ahead.
can I add something? That's a really good point that you brought up about the device. Oftentimes bills take years to go through legislature, and we can learn a lot now from the Alabama channel by typing in CRT or divisive concepts, and we can see what legislators said about that during the past session, and that can help shape some of the what we want to say for the
Yes.
next session. So attention to those things.
And I will connect that thought, Tara, with a really great comment that we have in the chat. This is why we all should be getting proactive in speaking with our legislators instead of waiting to react to the ridiculous stuff that they propose. And this tool can give you a jump on some of the arguments that were being made last year. You can see how things can shift. Kathy, you said we will have a record.
Yes, I was just saying that, one of the things that I had heard Anthony Daniels talk about how a few years ago he had tried to get a provision for incest or rape of a woman that basically gets pregnant, but the recording. Now we're going to have it on record, and it's going to be there, and that may be part of the reason comfortable with being recorded, but then you're going to be held accountable.
And just to give y'all some background, if you're not aware, and some of the reason the Alabama channel is so invaluable, yes, is because if you look at the officials of the legislature, they are purely the text of the bill, what the vote was, and you really don't get any context beyond that. And so this really is a huge game changer for us, because you can go back and review some of those arguments that are made. And I'm very curious to see how this is actually, you could tell when legislators start to become more aware that people were actively watching them, even though audio was streamed for quite a long time. People would refer to it on the floors and even in the committees recently. And so this is going to be a big deal in accountability, because people weren't watching in the past. People weren't holding them accountable. So this is a big deal.
Yeah, we oftentimes will see maybe people in an entire state of Alabama watching a committee meeting. Now you'll see a whole lot more on that committee meeting. As long as it's being live streamed and we capture it, then people will see it.
Yep. So seeing any more questions. If y'all do, last chance to drop them in the chat, but I did want to go around and give the panelists one more chance to close if they had anything they wanted to say. So Terrell, I'll start with you. I pointed down. You're probably not down on other people's screen, but.
So basically, I want you to go out and use the tool. I want you to play with it, get familiar with it, get familiar with Allison. Now's the time to prepare for the legislative session. And so please do that. And then if anybody has any direct questions or wants to reach me, you can just email me and I'll put it in the chat. It's the Alabama channel at lwval.org. Please reach out to me, or you can reach out through the website, through the Facebook page. I'll be behind all of those pages. So please reach me.
Robin?
Just find the thing that you're passionate about. Find the thing that you want to change. There are plenty of things that need to be changed in Alabama. And what we're trying to offer is the tools to make you effective in making those changes. And we want to stand with you on it.
And then Patricia, is there anything else you'd like to add?
We cannot change Alabama unless we take action. And that's just the bottom line. You got to be invested in change.
All right. Well, thank y'all so much. I'm going to go to Kathy to see if there's anything we need to talk about in closing. But thank y'all for sticking through it. I think we had some great discussions, some really great tools for folks. I appreciate you joining us. Kathy?
All right, thank you. I wanted to just take a moment and thank you again for joining us tonight. And we had a really fantastic discussion. And this is the kind of thing we all need to consider part of our getting engaged. Civic engagement is something that we don't do enough of, and it's a lot of fun. I think the more you get involved, the more you're going to get from it. And I agree with all the comments that the panelists have made. I did want to point out that we've got another panel on February the 13th, and this is a panel focused on voter suppression. And it's the first in our, it's one of our, I guess we had a panel last week on voting rights restoration. We're going to have one that gives sort of the big picture view of voter suppression in Alabama. We've got a stellar panel. We've got Dylan Nettles, who is voting rights lead for ACU Alabama. We've got Brian Lorge, who is our VRR lead for the League of Women Voters of Alabama. And then we've got Attorney Duell Ross from Legal Defense Fund, NAACP, who, if you followed the Milligan versus Merrill case, he was actually the one that made the oral arguments on that case to the Supreme Court. And so we're going to bring them together to talk about voter suppression in Alabama. Stephanie Butler, who's from out of the Birmingham League, she's going to be our moderator. And I just want to ask all of you, please join us then. We'd like for you to join the league if you're not already a member, but that's not required to join us Zooms, because we want everybody to participate. Look forward to our next time we get together. And I want to say good night and have a good week.
I've never been healthier.
Shingles doesn't care, but Shingrix protects. Proven over 90% effective to prevent shingles in adults 50 years and older. Shingrix does not protect everyone and is not those with severe allergies. Allergic reactions to its ingredient dose. An increased risk of Guillain-Barré syndrome was observed after getting Shingrix. Fainting can also happen. The most common side effects are pain, redness, and swelling at the injection site, redness, headache, shivering, fever, and upset stomach. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Shingrix today.
That was easy, huh? I never thought we'd get up here. Thank you, Minority Leader. Hakeem, I've got to warn you. 2 years ago, I got 100% of the vote from my conference. There's somebody else I want to thank. The gentlelady who served as our presiding officer this week, our clerk, Cheryl Johnson. Thank you. You know, my father always told me, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And now we need to be strong for the American people. You know, if a son of a fireman and a grandchild of immigrants can rise to the highest position in the most important legislative body in our country, and if my colleague, Hakeem Jeffries, with his life story, can rise to lead his party, then opportunity and democracy still thrive in America. Jeffries. There will be times we agree. Many times we will differ. I promise our debates will be passionate, but they will never be personal. That's my commitment to you. And now, the hard work begins. What we do here today, next week, next month, next year, will set the tone for everything that follows. Tonight, I want to talk directly to people. As Speaker of the House, my ultimate responsibility is not to my Congress or even Congress. My responsibility, our responsibility, is to our country. Two months ago, you voted for a new direction for our country. You embraced our commitment to America, and now we're going to keep our commitment to you. It's a commitment for an economy that's strong, where you could fill up your tank of gas and feed your family, where paychecks grow and not shrink. It's a commitment for a nation that's safe, where communities are protected, law enforcement is respected, and criminals are prosecuted. A commitment for the future that's built on freedom, where children come first and ought to dream big. Because in America, dreams can still come true. A commitment for a government that is held accountable, where Americans get the answers they want and deserve. Our system is checks and balances. It's time for us to be a check and provide some balance to the presidency. There is nothing more important than making it possible for American families to live and enjoy the lives they deserve. That is why we commit to peaceful Washington spending, to lower the price of groceries, gas, cars, housing, and stop rising national debt. We pledge to cut the regulatory burden, lower energy costs for families, and create good-paying jobs for workers by unleashing reliable, abundant, American-made energy. No, the night is late, but when we come back, our very first bill will repeal the funding for 18,000 We believe government should be to help you, not go after you. We're going to pass bills to fix the nation's urgent challenges, from wide open southern borders to American last energy policies to woke in our schools. Well, also America's long-term challenges, the debt, and the rise of the Chinese Communist Party. Congress must speak with one voice on both of these issues. This is why we will end wasteful Washington spending. From now on, if a federal bureaucrat wants to spend it, they will come before us to defend it. As for the Chinese Communist Party, we will create a bipartisan select committee on China to investigate how to bring back the hundreds of thousands of jobs that went to China, and then we will win this economic competition. Speaking of committees, we will hold the swamp accountable. From the withdrawal of Afghanistan to the origins of COVID and to the weaponization of the FBI. Let me be very clear. We will use the power of the purse and the power of the subpoena to get the job done. This is something we should all agree upon. We will stand up and speak out for the backbone of our economy, the hard-working taxpayer. It's nighttime here in Washington, but in some ways, it's also like a new beginning, a fresh start. My friends, this chamber is now fully open for all business. I want to give all Americans a personal invitation. You are welcome to see this body at work. No longer will the doors be closed, but the debates will be open for you to witness what happens in the people's house. From the committee rooms to this floor, we commit to pursue the truth passionately and embrace debate. No more one-sided inquiries. Competing ideas will be put to the test in public so that the best ideas win. But we also pledge to bring Congress to the people, because answers have not and will not always be found in Washington. That's why one of our very first hearings on the southern border. No more ignoring a crisis of safety and sovereignty. We must secure our border. We must get America back on track. Now, on a personal note to my family, here and at home, to Judy, Megan, Connor, Emily, my brother Monica, Zach, and yes, my mom Bert. I am where I am because you are who you are. You can stand. I'd also like to thank my constituents in California's Central Valley, and especially my hometown of Bakersfield. I don't know if you're familiar with music, but as Buck Owens sings, how many of you that sit and judge me have ever walked the streets of Bakersfield? Well, I've walked those streets my entire life. I know it's people. They're hardworking and relentless, optimistic about it. And I'm very honored to have the opportunity. I am a son of a firefighter. Firsthand what it means to have hard leadership to others and change people's lives. And that is exactly why we are here today, to serve you, the people. We come here with the support of our families and the faith of our neighbors to be their voice in Washington. For all the wives and husbands, children and parents who are watching a loved one to be sworn in, I knew it took a couple extra days. I'll be honest, it's not how I had it planned. I want you to remember this moment. Take it in. Your loved ones are about to make history. My colleagues and I understanding and your sacrifice, and we will work every day to make you proud. My most favorite spot in the building is not in this chamber. It's in the chamber they met before, in Statuary Hall. It's my favorite place to take people on a tour. You see, it's where Abraham Lincoln served. He was just a one-term congressman and sat in the back. I like to go to the spot and I like to stand and do it. I like to do it at night when people aren't around. I like to look over and look at the clock, because that's the same clock and same view that Abraham Lincoln saw. I've watched Lincoln serve in the greatest challenge to our Constitution, the Civil War. I watched him take peoples who were rivals and put them together. I watched in a time that he did not know if a nation could sustain itself, but he dreamt of a future and built a railroad across the nation. I want us to all take a moment one time that you're here. I want you to stand there. I want you to look. And I want you to think, if America could do it then, we can do it now one more time. You know, Abraham Lincoln gave his life in service to this country. One of his most important observations about America applies today, as much as it did 160 years ago. He said, "We are striving to maintain the government and institutions of our fathers and to transmit them to our children and our children's children's forever." My fellow Americans, that is still our mission today. This moment calls for restoring trust within our country and with each other. In that spirit, I will work with anyone and everyone who shares our passion to deliver a better future for the nation. I hope you'll join me. As a Congress, we can only operate if we cooperate. My door will be open. I'd like you to come by. I want you to see, as you walk down the hall, a large portrait of Lincoln. I want you to go into that conference room, and I want you to see another portrait. My members know of this. It's of Washington crossing the Delaware. You all know the story. It happened on Christmas, 1776. There was no iPhone to take a picture. People wonder when it wasn't painted someone who was there. It was painted in 1850 and 1851. He was an immigrant who lived in America, amanuensis. You know why he painted it? Because he knew America was more than a country. America was an idea. He went home to Germany, and he wanted Germany to have a revolution based upon the values and freedoms that we defend every day. His talent was art. So he believed if he painted the painting, he could inspire his countrymen to rise up for the idea of freedom. Well, many historians tell you he didn't get it correct. They'll tell you Washington crossed on a Durham boat, which paints it with Washington in a rowboat. You see 13 people, but only 12 faces. You see Washington standing up in a rowboat in the middle of winter, wearing a ceremonial uniform with his hand on his chest. He looks so stoic. You would look at that man, you'd say, I'd follow him anywhere. You probably believe that he never lost a battle. But history would tell us at that moment, at that time, he had only lost. We had never won. You see, that was the night of our first victory as a nation when we surprised Hessians. But when you look at that painting, don't look at Washington. I want you to look at who's in the boat. You see, the second rower in the beret, he's Scottish. The person directly across from him in the green, rowing in the exact same cadence, is an African-American. You come down right to the middle, the red, the person who's rowing the strongest is a woman, and in the is a Native American. I don't know from a historic fact if they were in the boat that night. This young immigrant who had lived in America, that's who he believed would be in the boat. The second last person is a farmer. He could be from Bakersfield, I'm not sure. His hand goes across his face. People will debate this part. But what I see is a hand of the 13th person nobody sees. You see, what I believe Emmanuel is saying is, here we are, battling for the creation of the idea of freedom, that every individual is equal, not a perfect nation, but striving to be a more perfect union. Having lost every battle against the greatest challenge with the strongest nation, having lost them all, but willing to do it on our host of nights, with a hand reached out and asking if you would join us. That's as true today as it was then. If we let everybody in the boat, if we row in the same cadence together, there is no obstacle this body can overcome for this nation. It is time for us to be the voice and worthy of vote. Let me close with this. I may not know all of you, some of you are new, but I hope one thing is clear after this week. I never give up. I make this promise. I'll never give up you, the American people. And I will never give up on keeping our commitment to America. Our nation is worth fighting for. Our rights are worth fighting for. Dreams are worth for. Our future is worth fighting for. Therefore, with love for this country and charity for each other, let us now take our oath and be worthy of the office on which we are about to enter. God bless everybody in this chamber, and God bless America. Not so fast. I have to get sworn in first. Sit down. I am now ready to take the oath of office. I want to ask the Dean of the House, the Honorable Hal Rogers of Kentucky, one of my first mentors, to administer the oath of the office.
First, we want to offer bipartisan congratulations to the gentleman from California. Now will the designate raise his right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you're about to enter. So help you God.
Yes, I do.
Congratulations and Godspeed.
Thank you. According to the President, the chair will swear in the members-elect en masse. The members-elect will rise. The chair will now administer the oath of the office. All members-elect will raise their right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter, so help you God. Congratulations. You are now members of the 118th Congress.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.
The House will be in order. The prayer will be offered by Chaplain Ben.
Would you pray with me? Our hope is in the Lord, not in rulers or principalities, parties or persons. And we are keenly aware, especially on this day, as the psalmist has said, that their plan come to nothing. You thwart the plans of nations. You thwart the purposes of the people. On this day of profound remembrance, may we lean on the strength to be found only in you. Come alongside us and show your mercy on the American people. They and we approach today with a host of feelings. The abiding emotional and spiritual needs stemming from memory of inconceivable unrest in these chambers 2 years ago. The exhausting frustration over the prolonged impasse in the deliberations that obscures the way. The fear that resides in the hearts of families, staffers, communities, and constituents who are affected by the lack of resources and security, while this remains unseated. We wait in hope for you, O God, for you are our help and shield. And in you we will find reason to rejoice, for despite all that makes today today, we trust in you. May your unfailing love rest upon us, for it is in your sovereign we pray. Amen.
The chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceedings and announces to the House the approval thereof. Representatives-elect are invited to join in the Pledge of Allegiance. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from New York seek recognition?
Madam Clerk, a point of order. There's not a quorum present.
The gentlewoman makes a point that a quorum is not present. The chair will count for a quorum.